What is going on, IB Nation? Welcome to another edition of Upon Further Review, Week 12 style, or at least Game 12 style. It's not really Week 12. It's more like Week 14. But it's Sunday night. We're back. We're here to talk about a little bit of Notre Dame football in their obvious win over USC and how that went down, and going back, watching the film, all that fun stuff, and getting some additional opinions. And we're going to do a couple of different things tonight. So I just want to kind of lay it out so everybody knows kind of what to expect tonight. We are going to talk about the keys to victory and whether or not, Notre Dame achieved those keys to victory. Then we are going to talk about the college football playoff rankings and kind of where we think some things are going to go and how we think they might, move around and all the chaos that was again on Saturday. And then we are going to talk about a recent commit that Notre Dame had. So Chaston Smith, we're going to talk about him a little bit. And so we've got kind of three distinct sections of this thing today, and we're going to hit it all, Brian. But before we do, we got to talk about MyBookie, our friends over at MyBookie. So if you've been following along this season, you already know it's been a wild ride. We're only halfway through, and the favorites are cashing in at historic rates. And I've been using MyBookie all season, and it's been paying off big time. So if you're wondering where to start, I got a little cheat code for you. Risk-free Thursday. So every Thursday, take advantage of a no-pressure bet that's there to help you build up your bankroll. Just look under the Bet Boosts tab in the sportsbook, and you'll see it. It's basically a free shot at some extra cash, and who doesn't love that? And look, I get why people might ask, why MyBookie? Well, here is why. They make it easy for us to bet smart and bet big. It's not about throwing out random parlays. It's about finding value and making plays that make sense. Funny thing is, when I need a break from betting, I always end up in the live casino. Blackjack on a Friday night, count me in. For those who haven't jumped in yet, please use promo code IRISH on your first deposit, and they'll double your money instantly. I'm talking extra cash in your account right away, no wait or hassle, and you can use it on any game that you want. So you can bet anything, anytime, anywhere, but only with MyBookie. So Brian, let's kind of get this thing rolling here, and let's talk about the keys to victory. And this is after we've kind of obviously watched the game live. We went back and watched the film. And this week, you kind of had some overall keys. You had some offensive keys. You had some defensive keys. There's just a lot of keys. You need a keychain to keep all these keys, figured out. But so let's start overall. And so team goal. There was some team keys to victory, right? So overall, number one key was the turnover battle will be huge.
It was.
Right. It was negative there for a while because Notre Dame, They were talking about, Notre Dame's big plus, turnover differential and all these other things. And then Notre Dame's -2 in the game up until the last 4 minutes of the game. So it was a major problem early, and then it became a major plus, and they actually ended up evening out at 0.
Right. Well, Notre Dame jumps up to a 7-0 lead, right? And drive number 2 starts, and Riley Leonard completes a 8-yard pass to Jaden Thomas on a pivot route. Then he runs a little RPO concept, hits Jaden, gains, 14 yards, on the play. So you're cruising, you're rolling along. Guy comes up, knocks the ball out of Jaden's hands. USC recovers. They get the ball at the 37-yard line. Now, keep in mind, Notre Dame stopped them on 4th down on their first drive, forced a punt on their second drive. So far, the Notre Dame defense has stopped USC. And that's when the floodgates kind of opened. And USC went down and scored on that next drive to make it 7-7. The Notre Dame offense responded with a field goal miss. The Notre Dame defense forces a punt on the next drive. Then Notre Dame's offense goes down and scores, and it's 14-7. We'll get to the special teams miss in a second. But in reality, Notre Dame, up to that point in time, the Notre Dame defense had yet to give up a touchdown drive of more than 37 yards that didn't come off of a short field turnover.
True.
And it wasn't until Notre Dame's second offensive drive that USC was able to put together a real drive that resulted in a touchdown. That tied the game instead of making a 14-0 game 14-7, or maybe Notre Dame goes down and goes up 14-0 if they don't have that fumble, because USC was not stopping Notre Dame on that first drive.
Notre Dame was
went
moving
right down the field.
Yep.
They had the fumble. Notre Dame's third offensive drive, they go right down the field again. Got a little help from the special teams and miss a 26-yard field goal. So, and then drive number 4, Notre Dame goes right down the field and scores a touchdown. So USC wasn't stopping Notre Dame early. You don't give them that early short field, and then all of a sudden you're not in the bind that you are. That was part of it, Vince. And then, of course, you have the turnover on downs. It's not turnover. USC had that. Notre Dame has the interception. They're up 28-21, and you're looking to put the game away, and you throw the pick. Now, fortunately, in that case, the Notre Dame defense stopped USC and didn't let them go down and score, even though USC got the ball in Notre Dame territory. But your defense was struggling already, and you did not protect the ball the way you need to. And then defensively, you didn't force the turnover you should have been forcing against a team that turns the ball over a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm giving them a minus, Vince, because, yes, they got the 2 huge turnovers late, but you wouldn't have needed those 2 turnovers late if you would have protected the ball better in the first 3.5 quarters, and if you would have done a better job forcing some of those mistakes earlier. I mean, big reason why Jaden Maeva threw the pick that he did to Xavier Watts is because they were finally starting to get a little bit of pressure on him.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I talked about in the Keys to Victory. I said, look, this is a kid that tends to lock in on receivers. And you watched it the whole game, Vince. He was not in the defense. He knew exactly where he was going to go pre-snap. And when that guy was open, he completed passes. When that guy wasn't open, he didn't.
Right.
You were able to get enough pressure on him. I didn't like the blitz schemes a whole lot. I didn't think they were effective in the quarterback. USC got throwing the ball a little bit quicker at times. But when you were able to force him to kind of rush his process, that's when you get the last interception. So I'm giving them a minus as a team just because you didn't win the turnover battle. You tied, and you needed those 2 huge plays at the end because you put yourself in behind the 8 ball a little bit by the fact that you lost the turnover battle 2-0 already up to that point in time.
Yeah, I mean, within the course of the game, I mean, they lost the turnover battle. Let's be honest. I mean, it wasn't good. And I heard Marcus Freeman talk. He was given it must have been his post-game press conference, but he's like, man, I was starting to worry because we were winning and yet we were losing the turnover battle. He goes, that goes against everything I preach, to my team. He's like, it was an anomaly. And then, of course, we go and get those 2 picks, which obviously helped. He's like, we only lost the turnover battle 1 time all season, and they lost the game, and that was against NIU, right? And so, he was actually pretty worried at that point when they were down 2 turnovers to none. And then obviously, Gray and Watts made up for it or whatever. But the problem is you can't have those 2 turnovers. I mean, you can't allow the ball to be popped out like that in that moment when you're driving down the field, like you said, probably going to score again. That's the thing. Notre Dame's offense was moving the football without much resistance, to be perfectly honest with you. And if they go down and they score there, look, USC fought the entire game. I will give them all the credit in the world. They absolutely did. But if you go up 2 scores right there, there's a chance that they might start thinking a little bit differently about how this game is going.
Or at least how they have to call it.
Right, absolutely.
I mean, can you have the balance that they tried to show if that's the case? And Notre Dame, then maybe they are able to heat USC up a little bit, knowing that they're not going to be running as much. Maybe Notre Dame's able to get a little bit more aggressive with some of their coverages that forces him to hold the ball a little bit longer than he did so far in that game. So, yeah, it was a huge missed opportunity. So,
yes,
I'm giving him a minus.
I get that.
I thought about giving a check because of the 2 huge turnovers at the end, especially the Christian Gray one. I mean, that was the big one. The Christian Gray was the one that was really like the game was over after his. And at that point in time, you were still down 2-1. And as we said, the reason it was even a chance to tie the game on that series is because you were down 2-0 on turnovers to start the game.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm okay with the negative. I was between a negative and a check. But I totally understand it because the fact that it was -2 at that point in the game is what made it a game. And that was the problem. So I'm okay with the check. I'm okay with the minus there. It's a minus trending toward a check, but I'm with you on the minus. I'm okay with it. The second overall key was field position will be key for Notre Dame.
I'll give them I'm going to go again minus here, to be honest with you, Vince, because your short field, you had too many short fields because of the turnovers, right? I mean, you had the 2 turnovers, and then both turnovers resulted in USC getting short fields.
Yep.
They converted 1 into a touchdown. You had a special teams play, and it wasn't a bad play on the special teams. Just your defense gave up some yards. USC had to punt, but then Notre Dame recovers it at the 10. They can't move the chains offensively. You punt, and you get USC the ball back in their own territory, but it was past the 40. And that gave them a short field there. So you had too many instances, Vince, based off turnovers and then short with your offense not doing what they need to do, where you gave them short fields with chances to score.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're going to have a hard time beating a good football team when you're just not doing the field position battle better than what Notre Dame did. I mean, again, started off well. And, when USC had a deep field, they put one drive together, but it was a little tougher for them to kind of put some of those drives together, Vince, when they had at least early on, when they had those shorter fields. And so you're just going to have to, again, you have to do a better job of winning the field position battle if you're going to beat teams like this. That's just the reality of it. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, that was actually the one punt, they got the ball to plus 45, not minus 45. So they started the ball in Notre Dame territory 3 times, and they scored 2 touchdowns on those 3 drives.
Yep, and 1 was a turnover on downs.
Right.
Which was the turning point in the game, by all accounts. I mean, I think there's a couple of different things you could point to as a turning point in this game, but that interception, and then they stop them on downs, and then Notre Dame goes down and scores a touchdown, I think was absolutely huge. Yeah. But look, Notre Dame's best starting position was their own 38-yard line, and that's from that possession where USC turned it over on downs. Okay. That was their best starting field position of the day. And that's not great. I mean, look, everybody talks about, oh, well, Notre Dame's offense isn't that good because they always get great starting field position from the defense. That didn't happen in this game.
Which is a super lame argument, too, by the way.
I know.
When your offense ranks number 9 nationally in yards per play,
right?
It's a stupid argument. Correct. But whatever.
But it's still an argument that Notre Dame deals with because, but look, while the basis of the argument here, or the basis of the grading is they didn't win the turnover, they didn't win the field position battle. Right. Completely agree with that.
And it cost them points.
Right. But I will say the offense did a good job of going on sustained drives, even though they started out a terrible field position.
Well, they scored a lot.
They scored a lot. Yeah, exactly.
And kick coverage was outstanding outside of one play. Right. And I don't think USC scored on that one drive, Vince. If I was looking at it earlier, they punted. Yeah, they had they got a first down.
Yeah. A 6-play, 14-yard drive.
Riley Mills had a missed tackle on second down. They got in third 2, converted it. Then they had a throwaway where Josh Burnham almost had a sack. 2nd and 10. They tried to throw a go route on Leonard Moore. Dumb idea. Incomplete pass. 3rd and 10. That was the play where they tried to run that run, and Drake Bowen sniffed it out.
Yes,
and because they were in basically what they were doing, Vince, is they had the 36-yard line, and the first down play had gotten them to the 48, so they were kind of in 2-down territory mode on that 3rd and 10. So they were trying to pop a run on Notre Dame, which makes it even huge, more big that Drake read that and that they stopped it the way that they did. Because they were trying to pop a run there and get 6-7 yards and then go for them 4th down in Notre Dame territory. And instead, it was a 2-yard run because obviously Drake sniffed it out, but Donovan Heinisch did a great job of block destruction on that play. Jalen Sneed made a great read on it as well. And then Josh Burnham closed on it from the backside. Those 3 guys converged on the football after a 2-yard gain. Now it's 4th and 8. You're kind of at midfield. Now it's not really great. Okay, we're already down 7. Do we want to give them a short field? And they put this game away. So that was a huge moment in the game. And the fact is, Vince, the other part too is Notre Dame did a great job on 4th down in this game. Right. And those 4th down on the first drive and then the 4th down after the interception were huge moments in this game for Notre Dame. But field position, Notre Dame lost the field position battle in this game. There's no question about it.
Yeah, that's absolutely a negative or a minus there. No doubt about it. They did not win the field position battle. 3rd overall key to victory was special teams can't cost you. I'm very interested to see where you go with this one because of the missed field goal, obviously. But then the rest of the special teams is actually pretty darn good. So I'm interested to see kind of where you go with this one.
I've been torn on this one, Vince, because
I bet
I want to go minus. because of that one. I feel like if I could give a special teams grade for each unit, everybody gets a check. The coverage unit gets a check plus, and the field goal kicking team gets a minus. But like, you just can't lose points in a game like this. It was your second drive of the game, or excuse me, it was they had just scored to make it 7-7. You have a chance to go down and take a lead back. You don't. You miss a field goal. Your defense forces a 3-and-out. And then on your next drive, you go down and score a touchdown. It's 14-0. Should be 17 or 14-7. It should have been 17-7. You can't keep doing that. And this is one of those games, Vince, where it costs you a little bit. I mean, you think about it, that drive at the end of the game where it's 35-28, they got a chance to tie. You don't miss that field goal. It's all of a sudden it's 41-28. Who knows what USC's play calling looks like when you get behind multiple scores. I mean, that 17-7, does that change their thought process on play calls when, it's a tighter game? You just can't do that, man. You can't miss points, and they keep doing it. So I'm being a little bit critical here because you are correct. The rest of the special teams were really good, in my opinion. James Rundell had a huge punt in that game that was just outstanding. The kickoff coverage was, for the most part, outstanding. You had the huge fourth down conversion on the throw from Tyler Buckner, which is a great call, great execution. So I'm being overly critical. I'm admitting to that, and I'm giving a minus because you lost points. You just can't afford to lose points. But I will say this. I do want to at least note the rest of special teams, really job well done. I mean, you kicked off 8 times? 9 times, 2 touchbacks, and I think this only one of those kickoffs got past the 25.
Well, it's 8.
2 of them were touched. Right. Okay, so 2 of those 8 were touchbacks. 1 got past the 25. The other 5 pinned them inside the 25. 2 of them pinned them inside the 20. And this is a team that's got a pretty good kick returners. So, yeah.
So, for everything that you just said is why I'm giving them a check. I can't give them a minus here.
That's fair.
Just because all the other parts of the special teams were so good. That's the problem for me for giving them a minus. Look, I'm the most critical person on special teams out there. But I have to give them a check here. Look, missing a 26-yard field goal is inexcusable. And I actually, listen to this, Brian. We weren't there. We were here back in Indiana. But from what I heard, during the TV timeout after that missed field goal, they brought a kid in from the stands to like a competition. Like, it's terrible timing. But they had a competition where he was kicking field goals, and he kicked a 20-yard field goal and a 30-yard field goal and made them both.
Well, I mean,
apparently they were ugly, but they win.
If he'd had USC players coming at him, maybe he doesn't make those field goals. But I know.
I'm just saying, just terrible timing of the whole situation, obviously. But look, I still have faith in Mitch Jeter. I'll just say that, just based on his track record and the fact he's now going to get 3 weeks off to figure it out.
Yeah.
But the coverage team was so good. I mean, it was obvious that was the plan, was to kick it in the corner.
Yeah.
And say, hey, bring it out.
Yeah.
Bring it out. See what happens. And they did.
Vince, you and I have talked about this. If Eric Goins wanted to, he could have put at least 6 or 7 of those into the end zone. And I don't mean like in the end zone, like 2 yards deep. I mean where you're not returning it.
Correct.
Maybe one you don't get all of, and it lands a yard inside the end zone, and he returns it out. But if he wanted to, that was the plan. Get it high and place it in the corner. And he only missed once. He had that one, and that was the one that went to 36.
It went to the 36-yard line.
Because it was too other than that, you're trying to get in the corner, and it was too far out in towards the hash.
Special teams wise, their average starting field position was fantastic. Like they absolutely did a great job with that. James Rendell had 2 punts, 1 completely flipped the field, which is exactly what you want. That's an A+. That's fantastic. They didn't really have an opportunity to return a bunch of stuff, which is fine.
All year.
I mean,
they're
not
punts, and
they're not letting these guys on kick return it. They're kicking it over their head because they don't want them to return it. And I get that. You got an All-American returner back there and Jadarian Price. Like, they don't want you to return the football. I get it. So can't miss those field goals. Can't miss that chip shot field goal. All of the extra points look fantastic, and this was 6 yards deeper. Like, it makes no sense, obviously, but it is a mental block, which I hope he gets figured out over the next 3 weeks, which I think he will. But I just can't go minus on this one, as I think the rest was. And then you throw in the fake punt too, which in that moment was still a massive moment. I realized it went down, and that was the drive where they missed the field goal, so it didn't lead to points technically, even though it should have.
It did help flip the field, though.
But it helped flip the field, and like in that moment, like at the spot where they called that, I mean that
was ballsy.
You gotta have a lot of faith in your guys, man, to execute that. I mean, and a lot of faith that USC is going to fall for everything that was about that play, and that Mitchell Evans was going to be wide open. So
that was at the if I'm correct, that was at the 26-yard line, correct?
Yeah. Like, I mean, dude. Dude. So that has to be talked about when we talk about special teams, right? So you throw all that into the mixer. You got a lot of checks, a couple of check pluses in there, and 1- that doesn't average out to a minus for me. So, but I understand where you're coming from as well. So I give them a check. If they would have hit the field goal, it would have been a check plus for special teams, but they didn't, so it's not. So that's for the overall keys. Let's jump into the offensive keys here, Bryan. And of course, your number one key to victory on the offense is, as it always is, start fast. What say you, sir?
So, touchdown drive on number 1, turnover on drive 2, missed field goal on drive 3, touchdown on drive 4. That was literally all they had in the first half. And, like, did they start fast in regard to, did they move the ball on USC? Yeah. I mean, literally USC didn't stop them once in the first half in regard to, like, forcing a punt. But you just can't miss field goals. You can't turn the ball over. And one of them is not on the offense. I mean, but at the same time, it kind of is, because, like, here's a thought: don't settle for a field goal. Put the dang ball into the end zone. Convert and put the ball in the end zone. And they weren't able to do that. So, yeah, and on first down and near the red zone, you run a little play where Bo Collins is open. If he catches it, he turns it upfield for 5 or 6 yard gain, and he drops it. And then second down, you run. You get 3 yards. You get 3 yards on second down, and now you're in 4th and 4. If Bo Collins catches that ball, maybe you're in a situation where it's 4th and 1 and you're going to go for it there. So, I got to give you a minus, because you didn't put enough points on the board and opportunities where you did. You had to miss field goal and you had to turnover. Just can't do that. You can't go 2 of 4 in the first quarter on scoring possessions. You just can't. Yeah, but somebody else, special teams, missed a field goal. Well, you shouldn't be settling for field goals in those situations. Yeah. And you settled for it because you dropped the pass and you didn't open run lanes in the red zone. So I'm going minus. I mean, it looked like it was going to be good at first. I mean, first drive right down the field, second drive, immediate first down on second drive. And the defender made a great play on the ball. But, Jaden's got to do a better job of protecting the football in that type of situation. And I feel bad for him, because the kid's giving you everything he's had all year, but you just can't turn the ball over in that situation. And you could just see the look on his face on the sideline. He was so destroyed in his head. I just felt terrible for him, because, like, that kid's giving you everything you've asked him to do. He's done. And for something like that to happen, you're just like, man, that sucks. But you just can't do that. Can't turn the ball over. So I'm going minus, Vince, because you had chances to really put this USC team behind, and you couldn't do it because of your own missed opportunities. Not because your special teams missed a field goal, your own fumble, drop pass on first down in the red zone, all that stuff. You have to do a better job there. So minus for me.
The what could have been scenario, right? We all play the what could have been, right? As I'm looking at the drive chart right now, 13 plays, 72 yards, touchdown. The second drive, they were moving the ball. USC was barely an impediment, on that drive. They were moving it, and then they obviously fumble. That should have been a score. That should have been touchdown. And then they drive down the field, 13 plays, 66 yards. Obviously, they missed the field goal. Then the next drive, 7 plays, 65 yards. They do score a touchdown. If all of those are touchdowns, it is 28-0, and I don't think that USC scores, because if you look at their drives, they turn it over on downs, they punt, they score a touchdown on a short field because of the fumble, and then they punt again. So their first 4 drives would have been, downs, punt, punt, punt. You know what I mean? So it's like the coulda, shoulda, woulda scenario, which obviously we can't, operate in, man, it would have been a great start. And that game would have been over so much earlier than it actually was, right? But that's not the way it went down. And so that's why it's a minus for me as well, because they didn't do those things when it was sitting right in front of them to do that. Like I said, USC's defense was not putting up much of a fight early. They just weren't. And Notre Dame was inside the head of the defensive coordinator for USC, and they were
trying.
No problem.
They were trying, but they didn't have answers for Notre Dame.
Right.
I mean, they really didn't have no answers for Notre Dame really much of the whole game, Vince, outside of the one drive they stopped them when they were backed up, and then you had the 31-28,
and Notre Dame
35-21. They started heating Notre Dame up, and Notre Dame, like you said, you were going to say before I cut you off, they were getting ready to go. They went into the whole let's kind of go slow and get out of rhythm a little sooner than because what was working for them early was tempo. They were running a lot of tempo early.
Yes,
and they had USC on the heels, and then when they got the lead, they went away from that.
Correct.
So I wouldn't have. I'd have said we need one more score. And part of is you got to read your defense. Your defense is not having a typical Notre Dame defensive day. Hey, guys, let's not ask them to put this game away. Let's us put this game away and have the same mentality, go down and score a touchdown. That's what I would have liked to have seen, but we didn't. So I'm going minus there, Vince.
Okay. Yep, me too. I'm right there with you. Second offensive key to victory is establish the ground game. And I feel like we're about to get a little more positive.
It's a minus. They didn't run for 350 yards. I mean, if you can't run for 350 yards, I'm just kidding.
For like 2 seconds, I was like, really?
Yeah. God, what happened to you today? Are you in a bad mood?
It's like, are you okay?
Like Angela make you sleep on a couch last night? Like, what is going on with you?
This is like, you get a minus and you get a minus.
Yes. Jeremiah Love didn't follow me back on Twitter. I'm mad. I'm just kidding. I don't know if he follows me on Twitter or not. No, this is a plus. This is without a question, a plus. And it's not just the yards, Vince, because, I mean, you and I have talked in games where Notre Dame's had some, I don't want to say hollow yards, but just like where they had a lot of yards, but it wasn't like a great performance. They weren't overly efficient. They just had a couple big runs against an inferior opponent. Yeah, I talked about it in the show last night. This is a team that in the 6 games prior to Notre Dame, including a game against Penn State, they were holding opponents to 106 yards a game and 3.6 yards per carry. Notre Dame had that by halftime. You know what I mean? And it's just like, and you look at the performance, and then the second half, USC makes adjustments, and Notre Dame made better ones. Because Jadarian Price had 99 yards in the third quarter by himself. In the third quarter, after Jeremiah Love went down. So, I look at it, Vince, and you look at the first drive. You first play the game, you set the tempo. Just 19 yards, inside zone, right down their throat. And I think Jeremiah Love got hit at 8 yards down the field.
Yep.
And then he carries them, and then the offensive line comes charging, and you set the tempo right away. You go pass, you get the first down, scramble, tunnel screen. You have a scramble play where Riley Leonard scrambles on a corner fire, and then you get down, and then all of a sudden you run it again to Jeremiah Love, counter for 9 yards. Pass, 2nd and 9, inside zone for 7 yards. So you go from 2nd and 9 to 3rd and 2. Quarterback draw for a first down, and then you punched it in 2 plays from the red zone. I mean, that's a great way to start the game. They established the ground game early. Second drive, they have the turnovers. Third drive, you have Jadarian Price gets stopped for a couple, that drive, not great running the ball there. USC was doing a lot of run stunts. Notre Dame counters and comes back the next drive. They get the run game going a little bit more, but then they start, you have an outside zone that went for 8. You had a couple pass plays that went well on you. You get the touchdown drive. Second quarter, USC was really focused on, here's what I liked, Vince. First quarter, you're running the ball well on them. USC makes some adjustments. They start going a little box, kind of reducing their splits. They start bringing linebackers off the edge. Their safeties are flying down. So Notre Dame goes in at halftime, makes some adjustments, get a couple quick hitters. They run a trap play on the first play, kick out the edge. They just basically wash everybody down and kick out the edge, which is what you do to that kind of bear front. Go for 10 yards. And then you get a duo concept to Jeremiah Love. He goes for 4 yards. Get to a 1st and 10. Jeremiah goes for another 4 yards. That's an efficient run. And then Jadarian Price comes off the bench, and they spread the field. They bring an edge pressure. They run an inside zone right inside of it. Jadarian creases it just like that, makes him move on a guy, bounces outside for a 36-yard gain. And then the final drive of the half, Vince, they get the touchdown pass to Mitchell Evans, which makes it 35-21. You run an inside zone load play where the tight end leads up on there for 4 yards on 1st and 10. That's an efficient run. Next play, they run outside zone. Jadarian makes a great read on it. Blockwell makes a great read on it. Goes for 35 yards, sets up your touchdown. I mean, when they needed the run game to dominate, it dominated. And USC did some things schematically to try to take it out. Notre Dame adjusted schematically and went right back at it. And there wasn't a whole lot that USC could do, to be honest with you. I mean, their entire game plan was geared on stopping the run, and they still couldn't stop the run. And that's a heck of a performance, man. So, and then you look at it, you know, the final statistics and what they were, Vince. Notre Dame finishes with, let's pull it up here real quick. Final stats. They ended up with 258 rushing yards, and that includes a -2 from taking a knee. That includes 9 yards of losses from sacks. So if you talk about just look at the two backs. Forget trying to take quarterback scrambles and all that into account. Just look at the running backs. 25 carries for 210 yards. 8.4 yards a carry. And the longest run was only 36 yards. It's not like, you know, they ripped off a 70-yard touchdown run and then, you know, Jadarian Price has 5 carries for, you know, or it's 8 carries for 100 yards when you're like, yeah, but he had 7 carries for 30. He had like the one long run, and that's padded the stats. No, this was just gashing them all game long. 0 combined negative yards for Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. That's the line. That's the backs. That's everybody. Because I don't care how good of a back you are. When you're getting hit 2 yards behind the line as you're getting the ball out, you're not making people miss. And that's a heck of a performance against the defense that was good against the run, had been good against the run. And you handled your business and went out there and dominated on the ground. So, yeah, it's an easy plus for me. Easy plus.
You had a stat that I actually read on Twitter. You just put it out about the yards per play, I do believe, across the country.
Yards per carry.
Can you get into that? Is it yards per carry? Can you get into that real quick? Because I thought that was very, very impressive when you kind of broke it down. Do you have that in front of you by chance?
So basically, if you look at the season totals, there are 7 running backs that had at least 75 carries, because I count that as the fewer carries you have, the easier it is for one carry to inflate your statistics.
Sure. So
7 running backs in college football had at least 75 carries and averaged 7 yards, 7.0, not 6.95 rounded up, but 7.00 yards or better. 7. Only 3 of those were Power 5 running backs. 2 of those 3 are Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love. So 7 running backs in all of college football had at least 75 carries and averaged over 7 yards a carry on the season. 2 of those are Notre Dame guys. Only 3 of them were Power 5 guys. What's interesting is the one Power 5 guy that also was part of that of the 3 Power 5 guys, the other one, Vince, was a kid that plays for Louisville. And Notre Dame, trying to find him here real quick. It is Isaac Brown, who this season averaged 7.31 yards per carry, had over 1,000 yards. He's a kid for Louisville. Against Notre Dame, he went 72 yards on 13 carries, 5.4 yards per carry. So, you know, Notre Dame saw that guy, and he didn't perform as well as as against Notre Dame as he did other teams, obviously. But that's a heck of a statistic, Vince. Heck of a statistic when you look at it. I mean, it's just, it really is unreal good. It is unreal good. And when you look at Jeremiah Love, he had the 2.1 yards per carry on 9 carries against Florida State. But in his last 5 games outside of that, he went for 8.5, 8.6, 18.6, and 7.6 on the season. And here's the crazy thing. As good as Jeremiah Love is, and he averaged 7.08 yards per carry, Jadarian Price was much better in yards per carry at 7.31. Now, that's part of that is he had a lot fewer carries. Jeremiah had 134 carries. Jadarian had 89. maybe if he has more carries, it goes down, but he's still going to be over 7, Vince. Because also with Jadarian, if you give him more carries, there's more chances he's going to rip one off.
Right. Yep.
And he's had, let's see, with Jadarian, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out of 12 games this year. He went for over 6 yards a carry. And 1, 2, 3, 4 games, he went over 9 yards a carry, 8 yards a carry. Now, the reason I say that is it wasn't like he had 2 games at like 20 something. It was like, he was just consistently good. He only had 1 game all year where he went under 4 yards a carry, and that was against Navy. He was at 3.8. He was over 5 in all but 2 games this year. I mean, it was just consistently being really good at running the football.
Yeah.
And he's really good back. Really good backs.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I wanted you to highlight that, because yes, we're talking about the USC game where they were also equally as good, and then of course Jeremiah Love went down. I mean, I wonder what he would do if he was healthy the entire time. First of all,
well, I mean, he had 99 yards and he had only carried the ball twice in the third quarter,
right,
or 3 times. I mean, so he had 79 yards at halftime, and then on the first drive of the game, he goes for 10, 6, and 4, 3 straight efficient runs. So what he would have done in the entire game is he would have done exactly what he did. And what I love is on the first drive before he even got hurt. So this wasn't like Jadarian didn't do anything until Jeremiah got hurt. Jadarian has the 3 carries. They bring Jadarian in the middle of the drive, and he goes for a 36-yard touchdown.
Yeah, right.
Jeremiah didn't get hurt until the next drive when he caught that pass for 17 yards. So that was an impressive performance. Very impressive performance.
The next key to victory on the offensive side of the football was get Leonard into an early rhythm, protect him, couple early runs, easy reads / comfort. I do want to read here real quick. In the first half, Riley Leonard threw the ball 15 times in the first half. He had 2 incompletions in that half. I believe 1 was a throwaway, but I'm not 100% on that. But either way, 2 incompletions in the first half, 13 of 15, and he had a touchdown to Eli Raridan on his final throw of the half. So, and he started out 7 for 7, by the way.
I give him a check. I mean, I think because this is as much about the game plan as it is Riley's results, right?
Completely
it was
agree.
A game plan that was geared towards letting Riley get into a nice early rhythm. You look at your first drive, he runs a little quick slide route to Jeremiah Love on the first drive. It's just no read, just get the ball to Jeremiah. Next play, run a play action pass. He scrambles for 5. A really nice, well-designed third down call to Chris Mitchell. They bring Chris on a motion. They run clear outs, and he basically runs a quick out cut. Riley drills him. You run a tunnel screen on your next play. They bring a corner fire. He makes the guy miss, runs for a first down. Just a little quick out cut to Mitchell Evans. Little Y under, RPO read pull, 1 yard gain there. So there wasn't a lot of, hey, let's just, drop back and throw the ball down the field a million times. Your next drive, he's 2 nice, easy. You have a nice little pivot route to Jaden Thomas. You run an RPO. He pulls and throws, and things are looking good, right? And then you do have the next drive. You do have to punt. They end up faking it there on that 3rd and 9. And then you get into a 3rd and 11. You run a stop route to Mitchell Evans. He was feeling good by that point in time. Riley completes that for 10 yards. Get to 4th and 1. You talked about this last night, Vince. Roll left, perfect strike to Jordan Faison. About as easy of a 4th down conversion as you're ever going to see in your life.
Yep.
And then he runs a little slide route to Bo Collins. He drops it. I mean, Riley was feeling
it. That was a drop.
No route. He was feeling it. It was pure drop.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt he was feeling it last night. Crossing route. I mean, they were doing a lot of things. He had the play where he had read Jaden Harrison coming open deep. He's about to hit him. Rocco gets beat. He gets drilled, and otherwise, I mean, so Riley was going to have a really big half if the protection was better. Because there was another play action pass they ran where I thought a guy was about to come open, but the pressure came and Riley had to scramble and pick up yards. There was a check down where I thought he had a shot to go deep if he'd had more time to throw. So I give it a check. I think they did a good job of getting Riley to an early rhythm. And he hit a couple of those easy chain moving throws. And again, the more you move the chains with this offense, the more chance there is that one of your backs is going to get another chance to go big. Hard to get those guys going when you're going 3-4 plays and you're out. Right. So check. check.
It's a check.
I'd
I
have gone
agree.
plus if they just would have maybe found ways to just maybe hit a couple balls down the field.
Sure.
I'd have probably gone with a plus there, but with that being said, I go check.
Yep, I completely agree with you. Everything that you said, they got him in an early rhythm. He was able to run the ball a little bit. Was obviously completing balls, had the drop. I mean, he was feeling himself as far as, being confident with his throws and doing all those different things. I think they tried to throw it downfield. It just wasn't happening based on protection and some other things. So, it's a check for me as well. I think they did a pretty decent job of that. Final offensive key, Brian, it was get creative with the tight end and running back pass game. I feel like you're about to go positive again on us.
Yeah, and it's definitely a check. I think we could have seen a little bit more from that, but overall,
I feel like they were just scratching the surface, though.
Yeah,
too.
But they didn't need to go beyond what they did.
Right.
Honestly,
exactly.
I talked about it last night. Your tight ends combined for 7 catches and 72 yards. 7 catches and 75 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jeremiah Love had 3 catches for 38 yards. Your 2 tight ends and Jeremiah Love combined for 10 catches for over 100 yards. That'd be like 97 plus 16, so 113 yards. 10 catches for 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's a pretty darn good day of work by your running back and tight ends, right? I mean, you get the touchdown pass to Eli Raridan. I thought that was interesting too, that he got the first red zone pass, not Mitchell Evans. But it was the whole point behind this breakdown, Vince, was they have 2 6-foot linebackers, and I use 6 foot loosely because they're listed at 6 feet.
Which means they're not.
Right. And they are not good in coverage. The one guy at Mascarenas Arnold, the kid that was a first-team all Pac-12 linebacker at Oregon State last year, he had given up 38 completions on 40 attempts on the season. And the other kid, Mason Cobb, wasn't much better. Well, they actually got Eli Raridan matched up against Mason Cobb, who's a 6-foot linebacker. He's their will, and he just smoked them. Not only was like my whole thought process was they're not as athletic as your tight ends, in my opinion. They're not nearly as big, and that play was the full obvious, like, that's what I'm talking about. And I thought they could have done more with the tight ends in this game, to be honest with you. And I would have liked to seen a little bit more from the tight ends. But overall, it's a plus because you recognized they're not good enough to beat us here. And when they needed plays, they went to the tight ends for those plays, right? You think of the interception, your defense stops them. Jarian Price rips off a big run. You got a chance to really kind of put this game away. Because when he scored that touchdown, I'm like, all right, USC's not going to give up, but this game is kind of over. And Riley throws a great ball, but it was complete because Mitchell smoked the guy on a corner route. I mean, it was a great concept. And they knew when we need a play, when we need a touchdown, we need a score, we're going to our tight ends matched up against their linebackers and safety. You smoked the linebacker for 1 touchdown. You smoked a safety for the other touchdown. And then, of course, you had 3 catches from Jeremiah Love. And that's the thing is if Jeremiah Love doesn't get hurt, he probably has 2-3 more catches because they were clearly involving him in the game plan in the run game. They had the screen pass. He had a slide pass. Then he caught the 1 check down that went for 17 yards in the play. He got hurt. So plus they recognized the weakness from USC, which is their safeties and linebackers and coverage. And they found ways to make them pay for it. Hard for me to be upset about that. I mean, my nitpick is I would have liked a little bit more. That's a nitpick. But, yeah, you did what you needed to do. That would have been what do you need to do to get a plus? More of it.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
That's a better way of saying it. But plus, they did what they needed to do. Good recognition from scouting your opponent, good game planning, good preparation, and good execution. They got the job done.
I feel like they focused in on the tight ends a lot for the first time, and it's right on cue with going into the postseason. I think they're putting all kinds of stuff on film. They are, basically telling the world, like, look, we can do this too. Like, you're going to have a lot to prepare for if you're preparing for Notre Dame's offense because they can spread it around all over the place. They've got wide receivers that can make plays. And by the way, they also have tight ends that can make plays. And they hadn't had a chance to really do that this year. I think Mitchell Evans is starting to come into his own. He's starting to make catches like he was making when he got hurt last year. So I think he's going to be an absolute weapon in December and January. And Eli Raritan was like, don't forget about me. Like, I can make plays too. Match me up with a linebacker and see how that works out for you. So I feel like Mike Denbrock is putting some teams on notice a little bit, but like, hey, we got this too. And I agree with you. They could have used it more. They could have been even more effective with it. But, obviously they won the game, and I'm thinking obviously bigger picture, when I'm thinking about the tight ends and stuff like that. I think they put enough out there to be like, hey, we've got options. And I like that. So, and I've been waiting for that for a while. I'm glad they finally did it in a game, and it's not just us hoping for it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just us saying, hey, they should be doing this. They can do this. They actually did it, and it was very effective. And I think that there was a concerted effort to make sure that was the case. So, all right, Brian, let's flip it over to the defense. And this might be an issue, but we'll see how this goes. But keys to victory for the defense. Let's start with the first one that you had. Stop the running backs, and it includes stopping the run and big pass plays, I assume, to the running backs. It was a good thing for Notre Dame that their best player went out. Woody Marks went out early. He was having some success. He had 6 carries for 33 yards at that point. A little too much success for my liking, but he kind of passed the torch to the Joyner kid, and he did okay too.
I don't know that I agree that it was a good thing he went out, because early in the game they were trying to run the football, and he had a couple nice runs, and he was doing good. Well, 33 yards on 6 carries, but I feel like once he went out, they started throwing the ball down the field more. That's when they really hurt Notre Dame. You know what I mean? Like, they hadn't really put a drive together from the moment he scored. That's the short field drive, but they hadn't scored
a really good point
with him in the game, because Notre Dame was like, they were giving up 6 yards, 8 yards. He had the 1 gain for 14 yards, and his other 5 carries went for 19 yards. Like, they were doing a pretty decent job there. And then he goes down, and that's when they started ripping off some runs or some big plays. So I actually don't think him going down was this huge benefit for Notre Dame, to be completely honest with you. But overall, I give this a minus. I don't think they did a great job with that. I mean, Quentin Joyner had 11 touches for 96 yards. Woody Marks had 6 touches for 33 yards. So the 2 running backs had, trying to do the math here, 129 yards on only 17 touches. He didn't do a great job of stopping the backs. USC just stopped going to him. I mean, that's really what it did. So, no, I don't think they did a great job of stopping the backs.
Agreed.
I love
that they did a great job from either.
Woody Marks went out. Wish CBS would have said that 1 or 200. Notice they didn't talk nearly as much about Jeremiah Love being out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's just a couple little guys.
I did feel terrible for Woody Marks, because he's had such a good year, and
it was senior day, player. And
you say it doesn't look like it was it looked like it's just a head injury, which is a serious thing, but
concussion.
Right. But that's not necessarily that type of concussion is not necessarily something that's going to be like a long-term thing. It wasn't like he was
It's something
knocked
you can definitely
out.
Get better
he wasn't
from.
Knocked unconscious or anything. Yeah, he'll be okay. But it just sucks.
He got his bell rung. I mean, look, let's be honest. 30 years ago, he's probably right back in the game. But
probably at least by the second half.
Yeah,
for sure.
For
sure. Because he was clearly not good at first. They'd have said, "Hey, sit out 30 minutes, and then you'll be fine." Terrell Davis probably doesn't get a chance to play second half of the Super Bowl 32 in today's football.
Right, exactly.
And Mike Shanahan will be arrested and fired for putting him back in the game. You couldn't see.
I mean, you're such a nitpicker.
I mean, it's football, man. Like, you got a choice.
How many concussions did you have? I think
only one that was ever diagnosed. I mean, my buddy Jake, actually, he's a big fantasy football guy. Jake Seeley. We were playing. I think it was Chincoteague High School up on the Eastern Shore, and right before halftime, I'm throwing a Hail Mary from midfield, and this little tiny linebacker just leaps up and drills me right in the chin, and I don't remember anything that happened after that. I threw for like 150 yards and 2 touchdowns in the second half, and I only know that because I watched the film the next day. But apparently I was a little loopy after the game, and my buddy Jake, we were supposed to go back to his house, and we were going to stay up and play video games all night because that's what we would do. We would eat Twizzlers, drink Mountain Dew, and play video games all night. And he was like, yeah, something's wrong with this dude. I'm taking him home. So he took me home. I don't remember any of it. And my head coach was like, yeah, I'm going to hit you upside the head with a baseball bat before every game because you were on fire last night. So I was like, okay, that's kind of messed up. But I probably had half a dozen at least of what people now would call a concussion. I mean, they were concussions then.
That's what I figured.
It's just like, oh, I'm seeing stars a little bit. Shake it off, get up and go play.
Yeah,
you know
right.
What I mean? I never had a concussion that caused me to have the kind of issues that you see for some guys get those really bad concussions where they can't get off the ground and like I never had one that bad, so I guess not remembering that a half of a game that I played is probably not a good thing.
No, probably not.
Hey, I still balled out and we won.
Yeah, I never played hard enough to get a concussion, so there's that.
Oh, Matt 2011 GT, this hurts. So that's what's wrong with Bryan.
Wow.
That hurts, man. That hurts, Matt.
Yowzers.
Anyway, let's move on to the next one.
Yeah. All right. Let me see here. Let me pull it up. Okay. Next defensive key to victory was disrupt. Meava will include pass rush, but also with coverage looks that make him think.
I give him a minus for the first 55 minutes of the game, 57 minutes of the game. I give him a plus for the final 3 minutes, right? I mean, they couldn't get pressure on him. The fact that they couldn't get pressure on him prevented them from having some of the coverage success that they had. You also have to give a lot of credit to Lincoln Riley. Mm-hmm. He had a really good game plan for Notre Dame yesterday. Yep. Notre Dame runs a lot of man coverage, and they did a lot of pick stuff, some not legal, some legal. And, we're able to take advantage of how aggressive they were with their linebackers. They really did some things with the coverage linebackers with those rub routes and crossing routes and things like that. Where it's like you're throwing a tight end crossing route, but he's catching it behind the line. So you're running picks across the field on him. And that the 26-yard game to Zechariah Branch was technically a screen pass. He caught a crosser, but it was a screen. So they're blocking on it. And that's a very well-designed blitz beater or man beater. And especially if you don't play it well, and Notre Dame didn't play it well. So part of it is Lincoln Riley had a good game plan. I mean, look, Al Golden got in his you-know-what last year. Lincoln Riley got in Al Golden a little bit this year. He just did, including getting rid of the ball quickly. And then Notre Dame had some big missed opportunities to bring the quarterback down. You had Gabriel Rubio missed a sack opportunity. Josh Burnham missed a sack opportunity. Junior missed a sack opportunity. Riley Mills missed a sack opportunity. So you had some things to get there. And then after that, also, there just wasn't really good execution defensively. So, some people ask, like, well, is this something that you're concerned about? No, I'm not concerned about it because other teams have tried this. Notre Dame executed better. And other teams have tried this, and their quarterbacks, you have to be perfect. And there were times yesterday where the Maeva kid just threw perfect balls. He just did. It's like the one pass they beat Leonard Moore on. You're just like, I don't really know what to tell Leonard Moore there. That was just a great ball. And sometimes you just tip your cap and say, great ball. But the reason they went 2 of 10 throwing at Leonard Moore is because if it wasn't perfect, it wasn't getting caught. Exactly. And that's just going to happen sometimes, right? And then part of it too is like Christian Gray just had a bad day for a while there, and that's not something you expect to be repeated, to be honest with you, Vince. So I'm not super concerned about it. The other thing is I felt like there was way too much after the catch stuff going on yesterday. That's way too many missed tackles in space, way too many poor angles. And the screen game stuff hurt him as well. Because if it was just a couple of the deep balls, then, hey, that's going to happen. No big deal. But it was just 20 yards here. Jordan Clark getting beat off a double move off the line. He knows better than that. He's a 6-year senior. He knows not to fall for that. But he fell for it. And I think what we didn't discuss enough last night, this is an excuse. This is just an explanation. You needed to be better out of this. I'm not saying it's okay. It's an acknowledgement of what I think is reality. I think they had a much tougher time adjusting post triple option this time than they did last time because they had a bye week last time and they were going to play Florida State, who sucked. This time you didn't have a bye week after game planning all week for a triple option team with very different personnel, very different expectations, very different assignments. And I think they had a little trouble adjusting to that, and way better athletes than what you saw a week before. I think that's part of it. Again, doesn't make it okay. It's not saying, well, I'm going to give them a pass because of this. It's just this is why I think they struggled. And I don't know if they would have had that same struggle if Notre Dame would have played them a week after playing like Florida State or Virginia kind of thing. So I think that's factored into it a little bit as well.
That's fair. And you add, the fact that they were on the East Coast last week and then the West Coast this week and kind of an alternate schedule. I'm not saying they didn't practice as much because they did, but an alternate schedule because of Thanksgiving and kind of the way, the holiday just disrupts things. I mean, look at everybody's life. Thanksgiving disrupts things, right? And it did.
And sometimes, Vince, the other team just plays really well.
Yeah, look, here's the thing. He was able to kind of sit back there and kind of do what he wanted. I mean, he locked in on some reads and was still able to make those plays. And, I actually, one of the things I was thinking about as I was watching the game back, Brian, USC did a pretty good job of getting to the line and kind of doing some stuff quickly and some stuff like that as well. And it gave Lincoln Riley an opportunity to kind of be in the helmet of Jaden Miyama, or however you say. I apologize, I butchered his name, I'm sure. But he was in the helmet with him a little bit longer because now they got the coach-to-player communication. It's like, hey, keep an eye out for this. Look at this. Because he was dialed in on certain guys and certain routes and certain route combinations and things like that. I do think that benefits a young quarterback. It does. And when you've got kind of a quarterback whisperer, literally and figuratively, in Lincoln Riley, I think that helps you a little bit, right? Again, not an excuse, but I do think that it is a bit of an explanation, though, too. So I wanted to throw that bit out there. I kind of thought about this afternoon. Let's see here. How about defensive key to victory number 3? Win up the middle. Mills, Heinisch, linebackers, etc. Key to disruption versus the run and the pass.
Same thing. Minus for the first 55 minutes, plus for the last 5. I thought in the last 5 minutes they did a better job getting pressure on the quarterback. I thought in the last 5 minutes they did a better job of getting in the kid's face. I mean, the interception that he threw was somebody kind of coming right up in his face.
Kaiser, yeah.
I thought second half, I thought that Bryce Young and Junior Tilamaka started getting a little bit more pressure at times in the second half, which helped a little bit. But the other thing, too, is you gave up some 3rd and long conversions that you just normally don't give up. And I thought Donovan Heinisch was okay in the game. I did not think Riley Mills played well at all in the game. I mean, he wasn't terrible, but he wasn't – I shouldn't say he didn't play well at all. He didn't play up to his normal standard of what we've come to expect the last couple months. He certainly didn't do that. I didn't think Donovan Heinisch played as well as he's played in the last couple games. They both had some flashy plays, but just the consistently not playing as well. And I think that's something that hurt this defense. And the linebackers were okay, but I think the fact that the front didn't play that well impacted the linebackers' ability to get downhill. They were a little bit too blockable at times on the second level. Mm-hmm. So this is a minus.
I think that's fair. I think that's absolutely fair. Completely agree with everything that you said. It wasn't good. I mean, they didn't play like themselves. If you want to blame fatigue, if you want to just blame not executing, there's a million different routes that you can go, and I think they're all accurate. Look, it's a long season. It's a really, really long season. And there have been injuries that have forced some guys to play more than maybe they should have, or, that kind of a thing. They weren't able to sub as much as they would want to. All of those things are accurate, right? And that's why this 3-week layoff is huge for Notre Dame right now. It's huge.
And not having Howard Cross again, not having Kingston again, those things factor
those
as well.
Are massive.
You'll get those guys back for the playoff. So
those are massive. Yeah. And here's the thing that I also want to point out, Brian. The time between now and the first round is about 21 days, give or take, 20-ish days. The time in between round 1 and round 2 is 11 to 12 days. The time between round 2 and round 3 is about 10 days. And then the time between the Final Four and the championship is another 10 days. So they're going to even get more than a week. And that is massive for a team like this that has been dealing with injuries and playing more and, all of those different things. I don't think rest is going to be an issue from here on out. And it won't be an excuse. Not an excuse, but it won't be an explanation, hopefully, moving forward. It's a lot of time in between games. And they do that on purpose, but it's a lot of time in between games. So just wanted to point that out. The final defensive key to victory was limit big plays, tackle well, be disciplined, and make them earn everything.
Again, a minus. I mean, everything that we said were keys, they didn't. You want to know why USC had over 500 yards of offense, and it's because they didn't execute in these keys. I think we've shown over the years, Vince, we have a pretty good track record of when Notre Dame does well here, they win. When they don't do well here, they lose. And sometimes they will have minuses, but they're so good in other areas that they make up for it. We've seen that before, but more often than not, it's look, you guys, this is why we watch their film. This is why I watch Notre Dame film. This is what they need to do. And we already kind of covered this earlier.
Sure.
Way too many yards after the catch. If you look at Pro Football Focus numbers, and again, their grade system sucks, their ranking sucks, but their data collection is pretty good. USC had 143 yards after contact against Notre Dame. That's just not good enough. I mean, that's not even close to good enough in a game like this. Just not even close to good enough. And that's more yards than Texas A&M had in passing in the entire game against Notre Dame. So 143 yards after contact is basically more than what Notre Dame had been giving up, period, in the pass game coming into this game. So, yeah, that was a bad performance. It was a bad performance by Notre Dame defense.
Yeah.
And you did not make USC, or some things they did, but I mean, we talk about the pressure not being good enough. Well, thank goodness it was good enough on the one play where Josh Burnham gets in the quarterback's face and causes him to miss a wide open wheel route. That's not your players are better than Notre Dame's players. That's just you weren't locked in, blown coverage. I think physical fatigue sometimes can lead to mental fatigue.
Oh, absolutely.
We saw that on Saturday a little bit. It's not an excuse. It's not. It's not okay. It's not. I mean, but like you said, Vince, there's a lot. You're just coming off of an East Coast trip against a triple option team. You're now playing a team that's going empty and spreading it out and got all these athletes. And that's not an elite receiving core, but it's a good receiving core. It's not what they used to have in the past, but it's still a good receiving core. And you've got some guys out. Again, not an excuse, just a reality. And you didn't execute. There's the one play that it looks like Christian Gray got beat by 5 yards, and in reality, you watch the play, he's in trail position because he thinks he has safety help, but safety help comes super late. What is it? Did Christian make the mistake? Did Adon make the mistake? I don't know, but it resulted in a 30-yard gain.
Right.
There's just things like that where it's and then you could tell Christian stopped trusting his technique as the game wore on. He started getting even more grabby, and that's the sign of a guy that's not feeling good about what he's being asked to do.
Yep.
But, they stepped up and made those plays. But, no, I mean, you didn't handle the screen game well. Way too many yards after the catch. I mean, the 23-yard run that Quentin Joyner had, I think it was Mills? No, it was Rubio. Just squares him up at the line of scrimmage and just
had him.
I
don't know what happened on that
just
one.
Whiffs. So it's stuff like that happens, and hey, guess what? You're gonna get in trouble. Right? I mean, you're going to get beat, or you're going to give up enough yards and points to get beat. Fortunately, as we talked about last night, this is one of those nights where the Notre Dame offense stepped up and said, "Hey, you guys have been carrying us for 3 years. Actually, a lot longer than that. You guys have been carrying us for the last decade. We got you tonight. And that's what great teams do."
Yeah, totally agree. So, not a great outing by the defense.
I want to say this though, because there's a lot. I get frustrated by certain aspects of fan bases in general. In this particular case, I'm talking about Notre Dame, that tend to overreact to certain situations. When you are good at something for 11 games, and then in one game you don't do well there, that doesn't mean all of a sudden it took until game 12 for a team to finally realize that Notre Dame actually wasn't that good at something, or that Christian Gray wasn't. Don't be that. Chalk it up for what it was. Had a bad game. Al Gold's been the D coordinator for 3 years. They've played C.J. Stroud. They've played Caleb Williams twice. They've played Drake May. They've played a lot of teams. It didn't take until game 38 of Al Golden's tenure for somebody to finally figure out how to beat his defense. had a bad game plan, and they had a bad game. It happens to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean the defense is also exposed. It doesn't mean Christian Gray is a bad football player. It means he had a bad game. But you know what the defense did when the game was on the line and USC is about to tie it up with less? Well, how much time was on the clock when he made that play? About 2 minutes left? Less than 2 minutes left when Christian Gray picked up. It was about a minute and a half left.
When Christian Gray picked it off, it was about 3:50 something.
3:50? All right, so last 3 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
Boom, makes the play they needed to make. And let's not also forget the reason USC went turnover on downs in the first drive of the game, which was huge, it's because of Christian Gray. He had a tackle for loss, he had a pass breakup on 2nd and 9, and he made the play short of the sticks on 4th down. Right? I mean, every player is going to have a bad game. The greatest players are going to have bad games.
Yep.
Can you step up when it matters most? And Christian Gray did that on Saturday, and he'll be fine. He's a heck of a football player. This is a heck of a defense that had a bad day. It is. Mm-hmm. You know, like Oregon's got a really good offense. They look like booty against Wisconsin. Do you think Washington didn't watch film of what Wisconsin did to them? Of course they did. Well, then why'd they score 40-some points? Because they had a bad game against Wisconsin. They did not have a bad game against Washington. That's life. That's part of it. You know, Illinois has proven to be a pretty solid football team this year. They beat Purdue by a point. Does that mean they're a bad football team, or did they just have a bad day? They had a bad day. That's life. And overreacting to that, tweeting at players, doing all that kind of nonsense, that's just it's not a good look. It's not a good look. Overreacting to it, again, not a good look. If you're good for the first 3 or 4 games of a season and then you have back-to-back bad games, then you worry about it, because it's like maybe the first 3 or 4 games they didn't have film of you. They know how to – the book wasn't written yet. Like, do you remember in 2014, Vince, you and I would talk about the defense, and everybody's like, man, this Van Gorder defense looks good. And I'm like, you remember what? I'd be like, nope. Guys, they're going to be in trouble. Because you could see it on film. You could see when good offensive coordinators see this film, they're going to rip that thing up. And the light went on for the rest of the Notre Dame universe against North Carolina that year. And then from then on, it was like, this is what I was telling you was going to happen. It just took teams a little bit to kind of get film on him and say, this is how you go at it.
Right.
And then that North Carolina game, they're snapping the ball and throwing the ball as the Notre Dame defense is looking over the freaking sideline to get play calls, right? And then the rest was history. But when you've played this much and you've been this good for this long, and then you have a bad game, it's not you got exposed by Deuce Robinson and Mekhi Lemon or Jaden Maeva. It's no, you had a bad game. That's it. You had a bad game. Yep. So that's what it was. Now correct it. Al Golden's he's probably hated yesterday, but probably loves it for the next preparation, because he now has films. Hey guys, this is why we can't lose focus. This is why we preach so much about this. This is why we preach so much about this. This is why we spend so much time practicing this, because when we don't do what we teach and what we're taught, and when we don't play 11 guys doing their job, this is what happens. And so it's great. And you did it with a W, not an L, right? Didn't catch one of these Brian Kelly symbols. You got the dub. Yeah. It's
sorry. Okay. My bad. All right. Well, that's going to do it for our keys revisited for the USC game. Make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, that notification bell, share with your family and friends, jump on the boards at irishbreakdown.com. We got all kinds of good stuff over there, and it will continue to roll out over the next 3 weeks and beyond. But it's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you get on the boards. That's where you want to be. So, Brian, let's talk a little bit about the chaos that was on Saturday. And I thought college football was done with chaos for a little while. I thought this was going to be somewhat of a quiet Saturday as far as all that is concerned. And I was not correct in that regard by any stretch of the imagination. Favorites went down. Rankings are going to be jostled. And here we go. Once again, really not knowing what the committee is going to do on Tuesday night because of everything that just went down. And again, what we see on Tuesday will project forward as to kind of what the committee is thinking, how they want to kind of prop up some of these conference games. And, you know, are they going to move certain teams into the top 25 to help out some other teams? Like, what is this going to look like? How is it going to be? there's just a lot to dissect here, Bryan. And I mean, let's just start with the games that were upsets. How about that? So let's start with, Ohio State and Michigan, since that was the first first game that was slated in the day and the first upset of the day. 13-10, I do believe, was the score. Michigan prevails over Ohio State. And then, of course, the chaos ensues after that game is over. But what does the committee do with Ohio State? That's going to be my question to you. What do you think the committee does with Ohio State? I did find it funny that Dave Portnoy tweeted out that since Michigan beat Ohio State, they're going to be in contention again. They're on the bubble, which was funny. But anyway,
I don't find anything that Dave Portnoy tweets.
I get it. I was like, okay, dude, whatever. So what do they do with Ohio State? How far do they fall? What do you got?
Best thing to happen to Ohio State this weekend was Miami getting beat. Because I think with Miami getting beat, I still think Ohio State hosts. The committee clearly likes Ohio State. They had them number 2 with a loss. And the loss was to number 1. I think if they'd even lost to Penn State, they'd still probably be top 5 right now with 2 losses. The committee loves Ohio State. But the problem is now you have 2 losses, but you just lost to a 7-5 team at home.
That's tough.
That's gonna hurt them. So when you look at the rankings now, Vince, there's now a top 4 that's just better than everybody else resume wise,
right.
And that's
kind of an undisputed top 4.
Yeah, Oregon, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame in some order. After that, man, there's a lot. There, you've got 1 loss SMU, who I think is criminally underrated. By the way, I've been saying that for a while. They're not only beating teams, they're beating teams convincingly, a lot like the arguments we've used for Notre Dame. They have a couple ugly wins in there that are different than from what Notre Dame has, and their loss is a very good loss. But, it's going to be interesting, because the way it's supposed to go is not like the AP rankings, where the AP rankings just dropped Ohio State behind Oregon. I mean, Georgia and Tennessee, correct? I think, or at least behind Georgia. I
didn't really look at the AP, to be honest with you.
I think they had Ohio State behind. So the AP had Notre Dame behind Tennessee and Georgia, and the coaches poll had them behind Georgia, Tennessee, and SMU. I don't know that that's necessarily going. They're not going to finish behind SMU in the at-large category because either A, SMU is going to win the ACC and get an auto bid, or B, SMU loses to 3-loss Clemson and they fall behind Ohio State. So SMU, I'm not worried about. But when you look at it, Vince, and say, where do they go in relation to the 2-loss teams that everybody's talking about, which is Miami, Georgia, Tennessee. Now in Ohio State's in that category. How do they rank
Ohio State too? Yeah.
I think Miami falls behind all of them. And now the question is, where does Ohio State fit into that? And that's the answer I don't know, to be honest with you, Vince. I think it's very clear that Miami will fall down. Ohio State, I mean, the thing about the Michigan game, Vince, is they were just outplayed. It wasn't like a fluky game, in my opinion. Michigan was a misplay here, a misplay there from making it even worse, in my opinion. And Ohio State didn't score a touchdown until late second quarter. And that was it. And they hardly I feel like they hardly really threatened Michigan in the second half, man. You know what I mean? It was just like, get to the second half, and it's like they go punt, interception, missed field goal, and a drive in which they had 0 yards gained. You only were even in field goal territory because Michigan threw a pick. You know what I mean? You go 3-and-out punt. I mean, your last – here's what they did. They had a 10-play, 56-yard drive to start the second half. Here's what they did in every drive afterwards. 7 plays, 31 yards, interception. 4 plays, 0 yards, missed field goal. 3 plays, 9 yards, punt. 4 plays, 1 yard, turnover on downs. They didn't even threaten Michigan in the second half, except when Michigan allowed them to threaten them in the second half with that interception. I mean, that last, what they have 30 seconds left, that was pathetic. How do you not just drop back and say, let's try to throw a bomb to Jeremiah Smith and let him out jump the entire defense? I mean, where was it? It was kind of ridiculous, honestly, watching them play. That was such a poor performance. I think you have to drop them at least behind Georgia. And I'm in a debate with someone today, some Georgia fan who I thought I respected, and then he just made such ridiculous arguments today. I'm like, I
I've
don't know if
read
I
your
respect
debate,
you
by the
anymore.
way, and I thought that was
It's like
hilarious.
Georgia, when you look at Georgia, of the 2 lost teams, I think they have to rank number 1. Because you look at their overall resume, Ohio State doesn't have better wins than them, really, because Georgia beat Texas, who's number 2. Ohio State beat Penn State, who's number 3. Both of them won on the road. Both Georgia's win was more convincing over Penn State, over Texas, than Ohio State's was over Penn State. Georgia's second loss is to a team that currently ranks 14th. Now, they got their butts handed to them, but they ranked 14th. Whereas Ohio State just lost to a team, Vince, that went 6-5. Was 6-5 coming into this game, and had lost double digits to Illinois, had lost by double digits to Washington, got blown out by 3 touchdowns by Oregon, got blown out, lost by 19 in a game that was not nearly as close as the 19-point score to Texas, and then had a good loss to Indiana in a game where Indiana played like crap and still beat Michigan in that game. I mean, this is not a very good football team, dude. It's just not. And they handled you for 60 minutes, handled Ohio State for 60 minutes, physically handled them. So I think the debate is now who's higher, Tennessee or Georgia or Ohio State. I think Georgia has to be ahead of them. I do. I think Georgia's will be ahead of Ohio State. The question is, will they put them ahead of Tennessee? And that's one I don't have an answer for, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I don't have an answer for right now.
It's funny because I've been pretty spot on with kind of the way they've been doing things. I think we all have, kind of understanding the way that they view the SEC and the block of teams that all have the same amount of losses and, that kind of stuff, right? And as I was going through this, I just feel like they're going to take Ohio State. While I do think that they do love Ohio State, I agree. I don't see them splitting up that Georgia-Tennessee block in the rankings. You know what I mean? I just I slotted Ohio State right behind the block. So I've got Ohio State dropping to 7. With Georgia being the number 1 of that group. I agree with you on that one. And then I think they're going to drop Miami. We can kind of parlay into Miami, right? With what happened.
Real quick, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you think, how confident are you that they keep SMU behind Ohio State?
I am confident enough that I have them behind Ohio State. Right behind, I have SMU at 8, and I have Ohio State at 7. Now, here's the difference. Brian. I think that'll be for this week. And then if SMU wins the conference title, I think then they leap.
It won't matter anyway because they're going to be ahead of them.
Agreed.
They're ranked ahead.
Right.
They're going to be seated ahead of them, even
Correct.
if they're not ranked.
It won't matter. Your ranking will not matter at that point. I completely agree with you. But I do think that they will leap them in the rankings and in the seedings if they win the ACC championship. I think they'll be behind on Tuesday, but I think it's a 1 week thing. And then once SMU does what I think they're going to do in the ACC championship, I think they leap them. So
I think that they're going to split up the 2 SEC teams and have Ohio State in the middle. I'm not saying that's what they should do. I'm saying that's what I think they will do. And that's what I think they will do. I'm looking at this. I mean, I would personally have SMU higher than Tennessee. I would have them higher than Ohio State right now. I mean, people acting like SMU still some group of 5 team, and they're not.
I know they are.
I know you know that, but it's like the way they're talked about is like there's some second class. They're like, they talk about SMU like they do Boise.
Yeah.
And I'm like, guys, they've played
100%.
a full Power 5 schedule. Their only losses to the number 19 team in the country. They've won they went on the road and played a good Louisville team who smacked Clemson and just blew out a SEC Kentucky team, blew out Pitt, blew out Virginia, blew out Cal this weekend. That was not an easy team to blow out. Cal is not an easy team to blow out. Cal's losses this year, Vince, have been by 5, 1, 2, 1, 8, and 32.
Oof.
Guess which one the 32 was against? It was against SMU. So I think SMU is criminally underrated, and I think it's this continual the ACC sucks type of conversation, which I don't think is necessarily accurate. And Clemson really did damage to the if Clemson would have beat South Carolina, which they should have, they outplayed them until the final 5 minutes. Then you've got Kentucky gets blown out by Louisville, Clemson beat South Carolina, and Georgia Tech took Georgia to 8 overtimes. Like, we're having I think a different conversation today. Clemson screwed that up royally by choking that game away against them. And they could make things even worse by beating SMU this weekend, because I could see the committee dropping SMU out. But I do think that there's a chance that they leave him in, and they should leave him in if they're going to say, well, we're not going to punish teams for losing their conference championship games. Well, then that needs to be true for every conference.
Absolutely. We'll see.
And that needs to be true for SMU as well.
Yeah, we'll see.
So we'll see.
Look, if SMU takes care of business the way that they should, none of this conversation even matters, because I think they're going to be the 3 seed. You know what I mean? And they're going to have every opportunity to prove themselves.
I do still think there's a chance a second ACC team gets in. I do think there's still a chance that 2-loss Miami gets in over a 3-loss Alabama team or a 3-loss Ole Miss team.
Wow.
I think Alabama's of the 2 has the best chance to get in. I don't think South Carolina looked good enough against Clemson to leap those 2 teams.
I completely agree with that.
I think South Carolina needed to beat Clemson the way they've beat other teams. Their last 2 Power 4 wins were ugly wins over good teams, but still ugly wins.
Sure. I will say this ranking on Tuesday, wherever they end up putting Miami, is going to be huge. It's going to be huge because they're idle, right? They're idle. It's Clemson versus SMU. So they're idle this week. And if they're on the outside looking in this week, I don't think they get in. You know what I mean? So, I have them at 13 this week.
Then they'd be out.
And so they would be out for me.
They'd be out.
You know what I mean? So
I just
that's going to be huge where they
lost to a 9-3 team. To me, helps them.
Okay.
Unless the committee just says, well, the ACC is just garbage and it doesn't matter.
Right.
Because, it could be. Alabama's got more losses, and they just lost this weekend. Here's what works in Miami's favor. Just playing a little bit of an advocate here for Miami. Their first loss was to a team that just took Georgia to 8 overtimes, right? Their second loss was to a team that's 9-3 on the road to a team that's 9-3. Like, I have a hard time saying, well, Bama lost to a team that went 6-6. Actually, excuse me. Bama lost to 2 teams that went 6-6. And then also lost to their third loss. I'm drawing a blank on. They lost to Vanderbilt. They lost to Oklahoma. Oh, and then they lost to Tennessee. So that's a good loss. And then Ole Miss all 3 of Ole Miss's losses were to unranked teams. I think there's a chance Bama leaps them. I don't think Ole Miss is going to leap Miami. I do think there's a chance they'll put Bama in, because I think the committee is desperate to get a big name program in. And let's be honest, Miami's not a big name anymore.
Nope.
From a fan base standpoint.
No, I agree. Right now, Alabama's my last team in.
I think that's what I think is going to happen.
Alabama's my last team in, based on what I think is going to happen on Tuesday. So they get in as the 11 because Arizona State gets in as the 12 as things are right now, right? So Alabama's my last team in, and Ole Miss and Miami are my first 2 out. So I'm right with you with what you're thinking. But again, I think where they put Miami this week will be massive, whether they're in or whether they're out, because I have a hard time seeing an idle Miami jumping other idle teams this weekend. You know what I mean?
And Bubs in the chat made the point, Vince. He says no one else with Bama's resume would get in, and he's spot on.
I don't disagree with you. I really don't. I do want to make it very clear, like, what we're talking about here is what we think the committee is going to do. This isn't the Irish Breakdown rankings, right? This is what we think the committee is going to do based on what they've been doing this entire time and what they've done in the past to a degree. But I also think it's going to be fascinating to see how they handle all of the conference championships, right? What the outcomes of those championships, and then how they handle those, I think are going to be fascinating, because there's multiple championships that involve 2 teams that are in the rankings right now.
Right.
Does somebody fall out? How far down do they fall? You made a great point when we were talking on the phone before the show about they have set the precedent when in 2020, when Notre Dame played in the ACC championship, they were number 2 and they only dropped to 4
Because that speaks to this notion that people have this. People, I think, take what other people say and they turn it into what they want it to be. And so what the committee has said is they're not really going to punish teams for losing in conference championship games. Now, how I read that is based on history is you will move around a little bit, but you're not going to drop 8, 9 spots, 5, 6 spots because you lost in a conference title game. They're not going to punish you like if Miami would have won this weekend and gone 11-1 and then lost to SMU in the ACC title game. They're not going to drop Miami out of the playoffs if they were ranked 9th coming in, right?
Right.
Something like that. But as they showed with Notre Dame in 2020, Notre Dame got punished, but they didn't get knocked out. They were the 2 seed going into the ACC title game. They dropped down to the 4 seed.
Right.
You have to do that. Otherwise, why do these games matter? You can't punish the winner you can't reward the winner and then just pretend like the game didn't count for the team that lost. So I do think that, like, for example, if Penn State loses to Oregon by 17 points, I don't think they're locked into the number 5 seed. I think they're locked into the playoffs right now.
Sure.
Penn State is a playoff team right now. I don't care if Oregon beat them by 30. They're not going to drop them out of the playoff.
They're not going to drop them 10 spots. Like, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Could they drop them down a spot or 2 or 3? Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
If Georgia gets just boat raced by Texas this weekend, I think they're going to lose, but I don't think they're going to get boat raced. I think it's going to be a competitive game. But if they lose to Texas this weekend, they're not going to drop Georgia out of the playoff because they have 3 losses.
No.
Are they going to lock them into the number 6 seed? I don't think that's the case. Or the 7 seed. I don't think that's the case. I could see them dropping them down to 8 or 9.
I think if Georgia loses, right. Oh, I completely agree. They'll still be in the playoff, but seeding is going to change. Like I fully anticipate the seeding to change based on what happens on Saturday. And for all the Notre Dame fans out there that are like, Notre Dame's guaranteed the 5, you better hope that all the favorites win.
They're guaranteed to be at home. That's it.
Agreed. They're guaranteed to be at home because if there are 2 conference championship games that if the underdog wins, and I'm talking about the SEC and I'm talking about the Big Ten, if the underdog wins either one or both of those, Notre Dame's getting bumped down, guys. I hate to break it to you. Like, you can say, like, should Notre Dame be the 5 seed on Tuesday? I think they should be. I don't know if they will be. I think they should be. Okay. Right. I think they should be ranked 3rd overall. Okay. If you want to flip Penn State, fine. 3rd, 4th. It doesn't really matter to me. Okay. At this point, but you better be rooting for Texas to beat Georgia, and you better be rooting for Oregon to beat Penn State, because if either one of those teams win, that's a spot that Notre Dame's going to drop. If both underdogs win, Notre Dame's going to end up being 7. That's how I see it playing out. So if you're looking for a rooting guide, you need to root for favorites on Saturday. That in my opinion, that's what you need to root for if you want Notre Dame to be the 5 seed.
Right.
So
I don't really care. I think as long as they're 5 or 6, I'm good. And I think what I feel comfortable saying right now is I think Notre Dame is guaranteed the 5 or the 6. I don't see Notre Dame falling. Like, even if Georgia beats Texas, I think Notre Dame will stay ahead of Texas. I do.
Really?
I do.
Okay.
Because if you look at the 2 resumes, I mean, they have a 10-point win at Texas A&M. Notre Dame has a 10-point win at Texas A&M. But overall, the Notre Dame, I don't know if they'd say the strength of schedule is better, but the overall resume, I think, is better than Texas. Okay. And then Texas would have said, okay, you only played 2 good teams all year, and you lost to that team both times. I think there's a chance. Now, I wouldn't be completely shocked if Georgia beats Texas and they drop Texas and then Notre Dame ends up getting a 7. That's still possible.
Yeah.
But I think that because I think what would happen there, Vince, is I think in that instance, if Texas loses and Penn State loses, then I think Notre Dame would stay ahead of one of them, but fall behind the other. Or stay behind the other. They would jump ahead of one of them, stay behind the other. Does that make?
I get what you're saying. Yeah, no,
I can see them. Okay, let's leave Texas ahead of them, but let's not leave Texas and Penn State ahead of them. That's where I think it would fall. But we do have so I'm confident they're going to be the 5 or the 6. But the way they could fall to the 7, to your point about the favorites, is if Penn State beats Oregon, Oregon will be ranked ahead of Notre Dame.
Correct.
If Georgia beats Texas, there's a chance that Texas could remain ahead of Notre Dame.
That's what I'm saying. Yes.
Right. I just think it's more likely that Notre Dame would not fall lower than the 6th seed at this point in time if Penn State loses and Texas loses.
If Penn State and Texas both lose, they're both behind Notre Dame. In my opinion.
I don't know about that. I think one of them could stay ahead.
No, I'm sorry.
Could stay ahead of Notre Dame.
Texas and Oregon need to win. That's where I'm at. Texas and Oregon need to win. That gets you your 5 seed if you're a Notre Dame fan. It really is that simple.
No lower than 6.
Who's going to be ahead of them?
I do think that if Penn State plays undefeated #1 Oregon to a 60-minute field goal game, it's back and forth. They're in the game. I do think it's possible that the committee leaves Penn State ahead of them. I think it's possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying it's possible that they could leave Penn State ahead of them. If it's a 60-minute game where it's just back and forth, Penn State had chances to win, Oregon walks off with a field goal, something like that. If they win where it's just a 7 to 14 point game where they're just clearly the better team, then I think Penn State would, because I don't think the gap between Notre Dame and Penn State is as big as some people make it out to be.
It's not.
But I think that this committee, this version of the committee has shown they put a lot of stock into good losses. And if Penn State goes on a neutral field and goes toe-to-toe with the #1 team in the country for 60 minutes, I think they're going to look at that very favorably and not negatively like some people think. So so it's not even just Oregon winning. It just needs to be they're clearly the better team.
Yeah.
Because then you could say Penn State played 2 games against 2 top 10 teams, and they really just got outplayed by both of them. That's kind of how I look at it.
See what happens. We'll see what happens. Like I said, if you are a Notre Dame fan and you want that 5, you better be rooting for the favorites
no doubt.
on Saturday. You know what I mean? And you can get all the chaos you want behind you, but you better be rooting for the favorites to win if you want to lock in on that 5. And look, if Notre Dame's able to get the 5, I mean, that's a great spot to be. Obviously, you're going to get the 12, which right now projects as the Big 12 champion, and then you get probably Boise State at a neutral field at a bowl game. I like that path. And then at that point, then you would have probably Oregon in the Final Four. I mean, but getting to the Final Four, you're going to play a good team regardless. I don't really care who it is. You're going to play a good team. That's fine. And I understand your argument that you made the other day about Notre Dame wanting to, you want to go through like the big dogs and all that. I want to win a championship, man. I don't really care who they play, to be perfectly honest with you. Because in a 12-team playoff, you're never going to be denied the championship if you win it. You know what I mean? Because
they'll spend the heck out of it, and I just don't want to. It's not. And it's not even just that though. It's more about it's about proving yourself. It's just about that's kind of how I am. I'm, I'm one of those people that believes to be the man, you got to beat the man, right? I mean, I grew up watching, Ric Flair back when it was, what was it called? Before it was even WCW, I forget what it was called, NWA or something like that. I'm just, that's how I want to be. So it's like I get so tired of people saying like, oh, I hope that they avoid the SEC in round 2. Why? If you're afraid of playing an SEC team this year, then you just don't think this Notre Dame team is really that good.
Yeah.
And I know that's not where you're coming from.
No, not at
you're
all.
Just like, dude, I don't really care. I mean, you know what I mean? But I'm NWO. That's what NWO was the Wolfpack. NWA was the Northwest or like wrestling association or whatever. It was like back when the 4 Horsemen were the OG 4 Horsemen, not like with Dean Malenko and people like that. Like before it was WCW. But I want to beat Ohio State. I want to beat Georgia. I want to beat Bama. I want to play those teams and beat those teams. I don't want to duck the best teams. And so, but if Notre Dame earns that number 5 seed, I'm not going to be like,
bingo, no,
give it up because I want a tougher path. I mean, you earned that.
Correct.
I just don't want it to be, I just don't want to be like, oh, I hope that, because it'd be great to not have to, because I actually think that puts more pressure on Notre Dame. You could be in the semifinals and people are still going to be saying, you haven't played anybody. You haven't played anybody. You haven't played anybody.
Anyway. They'll say that anyway.
They won't say that if you beat Georgia and Ohio State in the first 2 rounds or Georgia and Texas in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, they will.
But they'll look.
Ohio State lost to Michigan. They're no good.
Stupid when they say it.
They lost to Michigan. Ryan Day's getting fired. They're no good.
They aren't, but
I can hear it already. I can hear it already, man. It's all good though.
Yeah.
It's just Notre Dame just needs to win 4 more games. That's all.
So real quick, Vince, you have, just so we're clear, your projected finals or playoff is this, correct? 5 Notre Dame against 12 Arizona State.
Yes.
6 Tennessee against 11 Bama. 7 Ohio State versus 10 Indiana. 8 Penn State against 9 Georgia.
No.
Huh? What?
No, I have no. It's not
this is the last thing you sent me.
No, that was the last thing I sent you is what I think is going to happen after Sunday. You need to.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the final. The
final.
The final.
When it's all said and done. Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Not for this upcoming Tuesday.
Gotcha.
Okay. Final deal.
Yep. Final deal.
And then you have Oregon, Texas, Boise, or Oregon, Texas, SMU, and Boise.
Correct.
So then Notre Dame would play Arizona State and Boise in the second round. The only thing that I would push back on is I still think there's a possibility that if Penn State plays Texas or Oregon tough, that Notre Dame would be the 5, and then they would play Bama as the 11 seed or 6. Notre Dame would be the 6. They play Bama as this 11 seed, and then they'd play SMU in round 2 based on your projection. Because I do agree with your top 4. I do agree that if the favorites win, it's going to be Oregon 1, Texas 2, SMU 3, and Boise 4.
And then that puts Arizona State as the Big 12 champion.
I could see them at the end of the day flipping Arizona State and Boise.
I could, yeah, and that's it. And if you're the 5
honestly,
seed,
should.
It doesn't matter.
And honestly, they should.
If you're the 5
you're going to get either
matter.
one of them anyway.
Right.
I completely agree. I'm just saying I could just
right
because you're going to either play one of them as the 12 and the other one as the 4. But I could see them potentially doing that. But I'm not as confident that Notre Dame's going to end up as the 5 as you are, but I hope that you are 100% correct.
We'll see.
Yeah. But I would not be afraid of playing Bama or the dream scenario for me is Ohio State falls down to like 10 or 11 seeded and Notre Dame gets them in round 1 because I would love. And I know that it's not a Southern team coming up. I don't care. I want to play that team.
I get that.
I want to play that team. And I also would love it if they drop Georgia down to 10 or 11 after getting whooped by Texas and Notre Dame gets them in the first round. That would also make me happy. One of those two teams. What I know I'm an idiot and you guys all think I'm nuts, but I want Bama, Georgia, or Ohio State in the first round. I want one of those 3 teams to have to come to South Bend in December. I just do. And then you get us because here's my thought. You're gonna have to beat one. You have to beat one of them anyway.
Yeah.
Why not do it? Why not get that team on your home field? I'd rather get them on your home field than Arizona State, and then you got to play that team on a neutral field down the road. Right. That's how I look at it. Take care of them right away and prove, hey, now it's like, okay, we need to shut up now about Notre Dame, or at least the fan base of that team does. And somebody said it's the concussion talking, Brian.
That's fantastic.
You guys are being harsh, man.
That is fantastic.
28 years ago.
Oh, that's the comment of the day right there. That is the comment of the day. I'm not gonna lie.
So that's where I'm at, man. I just, especially since you're gonna be at home, man. Dude, it's like if you could say what is a meme that you have right now for Notre Dame football. If I had to do it in a meme, it'd be that one of The Rock going, like that's where I'm at, dude. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. So.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for our college football playoff talk. Make sure you join us on Tuesday during the college football playoff ranking show. And you'll get your live reaction from Irish Breakdown and then some analysis following. So every Tuesday night when they have it, this is the last Tuesday night that they're going to have it. And so make sure you tune in.
The next one's on Sunday, right?
I believe so. Yeah. I believe it's going to be
the final
on
one's on a Sunday. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just like the college basketball one, I think is always on Sunday. The college football one is on Sunday now too. So this is the last Tuesday ranking show. So make sure you tune in. We'll have a show going, and obviously that is also is signing day on Tuesday or Wednesday, Brian. I
think it's Wednesday.
Is it Wednesday? Okay, so
yeah, I think it's the 4th, which would be Wednesday.
That sounds right. So then we'll have signing day coverage. We're going to have all kinds of good stuff going on all this week. But, got to stay locked in. And you got to hit that like button, that subscribe button, that notification bell, and share with your family and friends. That's the only way that you're going to know and be locked in with what Irish Breakdown brings to the table. And then, of course, jump on the boards at irishbreakdown.com.
we're not done yet.
No, we're not done yet. We have to talk about a commitment. Excuse me, I can't even get the words out. There was a commitment. Notre Dame got a commitment from a 26 corner out of Tennessee, Chaston Smith. He is a 4-star corner. He committed this afternoon, and we're going to talk about it, Bryan. And we're going to kind of roll through it like we always do when somebody commits to Notre Dame. And this is a nice timely commitment, obviously prior to signing day for the 25 class. This is a 26 kid. I believe this makes him the 4th commitment in the 26 class. And I want to say the 2nd defensive player. Does that sound right?
Yes. Quarterback,
Okay.
Receiver, linebacker, corner.
Okay.
Even though in the article I had written that they had another cornerback named Noah Grubbs, but he's a quarterback. Now that's the concussion talking right there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, Bryan, let's talk about Mr. Smith and kind of what he brings to the table. First, we'll talk about the backstory. He was in town for the Florida State game. That was the big recruiting weekend for Notre Dame. It was the night game. It was the big deal. And obviously, Notre Dame took care of business on the field. And they're starting to take care of business off the field as well with the guys that were in attendance that day. So he was there that day.
Well, at least they are in the 26 class. That's fair 25 enough. Class, not so much, but 26 class.
Well, you know, we can talk about that later. But why don't you give us the backstory on this young man and kind of how this came to be?
So, Vince, obviously, this is a kid that Notre Dame's been on for a while. You know, they had him on campus for the visit in November, but they offered him back in March. So this is a kid that's been on their board for quite some time. He had released a top 5 group recently. I think it was this last week that included some big time Southern schools, some big time programs. Obviously, Notre Dame was on that top 5 list, which I wasn't overly surprised by. Clemson was on it, Texas A&M was on it, and also South Carolina, Indiana were on it. And this is a kid from Knoxville, Tennessee. Notre Dame's had some good success with defensive backs from Knoxville, Tennessee. Matter of fact, the last one they got from Knoxville, Tennessee was a kid named, I don't know if you remember him, Vince. He was kind of a decent player in college, turned out to be a pretty decent pro. Harrison Smith, you remember that kid? Remember him, Notre Dame? You know, pretty good player, one of the best safeties ever played NFL football. Knoxville Catholic kid. Yep, that's right. So Notre Dame liked him. He was one of their top 3 or 4 corners on the board, and he fits everything that Mike Mickens was looking for. So you kind of knew they'd like him. He had a lot of good things to say about Notre Dame early on. He was certainly interested in the Notre Dame program. They stayed engaged with him, but there were other programs that just kind of seemed like they were in a little bit better position with him for a while. But he comes into the visit, and I talked to sources coming into the visit, and they're like, we like him, but we think Clemson and some other teams are right now a little higher. And this is a kid that's got offers from Texas A&M, Alabama, LSU, Florida, just Michigan. Like a lot of great programs have offered this kid. He's ranked number 90 in the country according to Rivals. And so you come into the visit, you feel like you're in the top 3 with him. Coming out of the visit, Notre Dame felt like, okay, now we're the leader. And things went real quick after that. Now, the nice thing is this was not a situation where Notre Dame forced him to commit like they did in the past, where they tried to convince kids. He decided, hey, I'm ready to make a decision. And he announced, I think, he recently announced that he was going to be making a decision soon. And then, of course, tonight I get word, hey, he's going to pop here soon. And so they really closed the deal soon. And a big part of it, obviously, Notre Dame academics, but the job Mike Mickens is doing is way better than what we've seen at Notre Dame a long time. I mean, when he sets his sights on a kid, it's like, if the kid likes Notre Dame, it's almost like a done deal. He comes to Notre Dame. He watches what their corners are doing. He listens to Mike Mickens. He gets the pitch from him. He sees what the development they're doing. Sauce Gardner's a pupil of his. Cam Hart's a pupil of his. He's starting as a rookie in the NFL. Benjamin Morrison's a star. He goes down, and Notre Dame's just fine. They bring in this 3-star kid. And that's the comparison that they make for this kid is Leonard Moore. Is like, look, 6'2", fast, smart, smooth. Like, this is who you are. Look what Leonard's doing. Look how good he's been. That's how you fit into our defense. He can play field. He does a lot of field in high school, Vince, but he's more of they view him as sort of a boundary type of guy. Okay. And the pitch worked. And so they thought they were in the top 3 coming into the visit. They thought they had jumped in top coming out of the visit. And it got stronger and stronger and stronger as we got further away from that visit. And now he's in the class. And so, and that was the thing that happened with Thomas Davis, as I talked about at the time, Vince, is, Notre Dame always liked him. He always liked Notre Dame. They were kind of one of his top schools. I think some people would have considered them the leader, but the visit was the final deal. He wanted to commit the weekend of the visit. Notre Dame was like, take a break, go home, think this through, make sure that this is what you want to do. He did, and it just happened a lot quicker than they thought. But it wasn't because they were kind of convincing him to commit like we used to see with Notre Dame, where they would kind of really push the needle and move the needle with kids to try to get them to commit. They're not doing that with the 26 class. They don't feel they need to do that anymore, and for a host of reasons. But that's kind of the backstory of how it was. Is they've just slowly, methodically just kept on them, kept building a relationship, and then as they play better and better and better and better, number one ranked pass defense and all this, the kid's like, look, dude, this is legit. This place is legit. You want to be an NFL DB? You need to get coached by Mike Mickens. And that's the reputation that's being built now around this program. So that's a little bit of the backstory of how we got here, Vince, to where now Chaston Smith is not only a top target, but he is now committed to Notre Dame. As I said, he's number 90 in the country, according to Rivals, the number 7 corner in the country in Rivals, and the number 2 player in the state of Tennessee.
So let's talk about his game specifically. What does he bring to the table? You kind of mentioned Leonard Moore, and he's got some of those traits, and they kind of used him as an example and things like that. So, I mean, is that the clear-cut comparison? I mean, talk to me about his game, what you see when you turn on the film. Who is this kid, and how is he going to, fit at Notre Dame, and what Mike Mickens wants to do?
When I talk comparisons, I don't mean like same exact body type. Leonard was a little thicker, Leonard was stronger. But it's okay. You want height? This kid's listed between 6'1" and 6'2". He's very long. He's at least 6'1". Leonard's 6'2", very long arms. And unlike a lot of 6'2" type guys, Vince, he's smooth. Why aren't there a lot of really tall corners? Because usually the taller you are, the tighter you are with your hips, and the tighter, the worse you are in transitions, because you have so much leg. It's harder for guys with longer legs to transition the way a shorter guy does. A lot of taller guys are a little bit tighter in the hips than a shorter guy. That's just kind of part of the deal. It's just the reality of it. But when you look at a kid that's 6'2" like this, you see how smooth he is, how he can flip his hips. Because the problem is Notre Dame could get a lot of 6'2" corners to come play for them if they were a cover 2 team where you don't have to worry about flipping your hips and all that. But they're a man team, so they need guys who can flip and run. And this kid can flip and run. This kid can open and run in a lot of the same ways you see Leonard Moore do, because Leonard Moore is really fast, as we've seen on field this year. You don't necessarily see it right away. And we talked about this when we broke down his film when he committed, Vince. You'd watch him run, and it's like, okay, I think he's fast, but I don't know, because those long-limbed guys don't look necessarily as quick in short areas. And then you watch him on, like, kick returns and at receiver or tracking a guy from behind, and you're like, yep, that guy can run. You know what I mean? Because when you get in the open field, that's when you can see the speed of a longer guy. And this kid has a bit of that in him. And so when I see that, that's where that comp is. And look, a prerequisite for Mike Mickens, and this is why Mike Mickens doesn't take a lot of early commitments. And when I mean early in the recruitment. Not early in, this is still early in the recruiting process, big picture, but they've been recruiting this kid for 9 months, basically now. Because he got offered in March. They didn't start recruiting him in March. That's when they offered him. It's part of the pot of gold stuff. But he's been on him for a while. They've been evaluating the kid for almost a year. And the reason that Mike Mickens doesn't like taking the kids that are just like early on the list is because there's a lot he likes to get to know about players.
Yeah.
Character-wise and all that. But the biggest thing that Mike Mickens cares about, you've got the hips and this and that, but do you have a high football IQ, and are you a competitor? And those are two things that are huge for Mike Mickens. So if he takes a corner, you can assume that he put in the work to say, 1, this kid has a very high compete level, and 2, this kid's football smart, really football smart. And those are musts for Mike Mickens when it comes to recruiting this position. And there's all the physical traits and all that, but there's more guys that have the physical traits than guys that have the physical traits and have the football IQ and the compete level. And that's what Mike Mickens looks like. It looks 4 at corner. So as they got to know him very well, there was really 2 corners that to me, from what I was told, have emerged as sort of there's really 3 or 4 guys, but there's 2 guys that I believe, from talking to people, are at the top of the board. Chaston was one, and then the other one's Joey O'Brien.
I like that name.
Yeah, I agree. So, and now there's other good corners on the board, but that's kind of, from what I understand, like that's Joey O'Brien's been their top target on the board for a while. And I asked tonight, because my thought was, okay, you got a 6'2" kid. Are you going to still take the 6'4" kid, Joey O'Brien? Is this the tall guy? Is this the kind of long? And they're like, nope, that he's still our dude. So, and they can both play boundary and they can both play field, so they can play together.
Versatility.
So
I like that.
Yeah.
So obviously he's only the 4th commit in the 26 class at the moment. I recruiting amps up once they get the 25 class, signed and all that kind of stuff. And you got your quarterback and, that kind of deal. But even though there's only 4, how does he fit within this class? That's always a question that we like to talk about, and a question we like to add. How does he fit in the 26 class? You kind of reference the fact that they got 2 corners that are high up on the board. He's one of them, still got 1 to go, but how does he fit?
Well, obviously this early in the process, Vince, there's a whole lot of this class that still needs to put together, right? So when you look at the secondary class, because you landed the 3 kids you landed last year, Cree Thomas, then Dallas Golden, then Mark Zachary, you got Leonard Moore and Carson Hobbs in the class before. That's 5 corners in the 2 previous classes. You're in a situation now where you want to take 2 pure corners and then maybe another corner who can play nickel or has some positional flexibility. If you take a 3rd corner, if it's a Dallas Golden type, a Mark Zachary type, that you can say, okay, he can play slot, he could play safety. In Dallas Golden's case, he could play running back, he could play slot receiver, he could literally play wherever the heck you want to play him.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark Zachary's a kid that could be a good wide receiver in college. I mean, just different. You can put him in nickel. There's a lot of different things you can do with him. I think if they were to take a 3rd corner, it'd be a kid like that. So what you do now is you say, okay, you've narrowed your corner board a little bit. Now that you have Chaston Smith, there's some guys that are just no longer going to be on the board for you. And now you're down to your top guys. You're down to your Joey O'Briens, your RJ Sermons, guys like that are just top of the line guys. I think some of the other guys are going to now move off the board. And now that gives Mike Mickens a chance to really zero in on his dudes in hopes of getting 1 more for sure. And then maybe 2 if they can get a guy who has some versatility. Joey O'Brien would count as one of those versatile guys because he's 6'4". He could play corner, field, or boundary. He could do some nickel type of stuff because he's so long and physical and can cover. He could start at safety for you, and the kid can move over to wide receiver and play wide receiver for you. I mean, so he has that type of Dallas Golden versatility. I don't think he's quite as dynamic athletically as Dallas is, but a very similar to where this kid could start for you at 5 different not just play, but start for you at like 5 different positions: wide receiver, both safety spots, both corner spots, and the nickel. So technically 6 different spots he could start in. And so he could be that. So you could see them get Joey O'Brien in the 3rd guy, but they definitely want to get 1 more guy for sure. And then as the roster evolves here over the next several months, then I think you could potentially see a 3rd guy. So that's really the impact he has on the class is now you got 1 high-level guy. You've set what the bar is at cornerback in this class. Because he's in the class this early, there's no need to worry about, okay, we've got to hit numbers. Numbers are going to get hit now. Now it's about focusing on impact talent. And having him in the class right after the 3 studs you got last year now allows Mike Mickens to say, okay, we're shooting for dudes, or we're not. The only thing we're taking out cornerback right now in this class are dudes. That's it. And not rivals 247 dudes, Mike Mickens dudes, who has a much better track record of evaluating the players that come here than they do, as we've seen with Benjamin Morrison and Leonard Moore. Yeah. So that's kind of how he impacts the class. I do like the fact that there's some balance in the class. You're not loading up on one side. Your first commitment in the class was a wide receiver. Your second in the commitment in the class was a quarterback. Then your 3rd commit was a linebacker, and your 4th is a defensive back. So not only do you have 2 on offense, 2 on defense, Vince, but you have literally just 2 distinctly different positions on both sides of the ball. So it's not like 2 linebackers or 2 corners or 2 receivers, 2 linemen. It's a quarterback, a wide receiver, a cornerback, and a linebacker, and all guys that are in my grading system 4-star players. And so it's a good start, and it falls in line with they're not pushing for early commitments the way they have in the past. And that's what I like about this commitment. And again, with any kid, we don't need to do the whole, well, I hope they can sign them. Guys, that's a given in the modern world of recruiting. But I'm less concerned about some of that because, like with Deuce Knight, they kind of manipulated that commitment because they brought Bear Bryant in the same weekend, and they had recruiting people saying like, hey, if Deuce doesn't want to commit, they may take Bear Bryant. And they kind of sped that process up. They've done that with a lot of kids, taking Daniel Anderson earlier, taking CJ May early. This now, they're just like, look, we're going to go for dudes now. And we don't need to do that because we've built the roster up. The depth is built. Now it's about adding impact talent. And that's what a kid like Chaston Smith does for you.
So where do they go next? What's next for 26? And, not necessarily, you've touched on the corner board, obviously, right? But, what's next in the 26 class? I know they're focused on getting the 25 class signed and everything this week.
Yeah.
But then they turn their attention. So what's next for this group?
Well, basically the 25 class has now been done. I do think, and I'll have something on the board here a little bit, but I do think that when the signing class happens on Wednesday, it'll be the 23 kids that are signed right now or committed right now. And I do think they'll add one flip on Wednesday. I forgot to tell you about that before the show. I'll tell you who it is, but yeah, but I think the finish is going to be not strong for them. And they missing some top targets. They're not looking to add any late. They're just going to go to the portal for 1-year rentals. And then, although I do expect Notre Dame to have a little bit more success this year, being able to recruit some guys with multiple years of eligibility. I don't think they're going to be holding to just graduates or seniors like they were before. So that's kind of where I see that one right now. There's 125 kid that they're still trying to close on. I'll have something on him early. It's just right now I'm not feeling great about it, but it's not a done deal. But I've already put out Meadows is that deal's done. Notre Dame moved on from that one. There's some other situations. So that's that. But 26 class, Vince, it's now okay. They've been focused on the 26 class prominently for the last few weeks now, outside of a couple 25 kids. I think the next position that they look to strike at in 25 or 26 is O-line. I think that's where they're going to look to strike kind of next, is to build that up. I think there's going to be some positions that are going to be maybe prioritized more. It's the case every year. We got to do well here. That's true for everybody. And so they'll drive into those. And so that's kind of where I think that they're going to focus next is offensive line, because there are some guys they've already built long relationships with. I think the board's kind of narrowed down a little bit. So I could see that they've had a lot of those top kids have been on campus multiple times now. I think that's a position that would make the most sense. I don't think they're going to be in a hurry to add more receivers. I don't think they're being a super big hurry to add more, certain positions. They're looking for impact guys now. And I think offensive lines, where they have the best chance of striking next.
Okay. Anything else you want to add about the commitment of Chaston Smith, 26?
It's a strong pickup, man. I mean, he fits what Mike Mickens wants, and he's a Southern kid, and he's a private school kid, and just a lot. He checks a lot of those boxes for what works at Notre Dame, right?
Sure.
And when I say that, I don't mean like, oh, he's a great kid but not a great athlete, and he's from a great school but he's not a great athlete. He comes from a great family but he's just he's a try-hard. No, this is a guy that's an elite, is a high-level talent, high-level athlete, high-level tools. He's not a 5'10" try-hard corner. This is a 6'1", 6'2", really athletic kid that's got a lot of production.
Yeah.
That also fits the character parts, the academic piece and the fit piece for what they're looking for. And that's the difference between the recruiting of the previous coach and the current coach. The current coach still cares about work ethic and attitude and commitment and caring about academics and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the 2023 class, the current sophomore class, there literally wasn't a single kid in the class that was below a 3.2 GPA coming in. Not one. There's always been those type of kids out there that are all those checked boxes off the field that also check the boxes on the field.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
That's what this staff is doing a better job of. Look, Leonard Moore is an elite talent. Always was. This isn't a surprise. No one that follows Irish Breakdown is surprised that Leonard Moore, who we gave a 4.5-star upside to and mocked people for ranking him as a 3-star is as good as he is. Irish Breakdown fans are not surprised by that because they understand that this staff, yes, but guess what? Leonard Moore's also a very high character kid, comes from a great family, and checks all the boxes that the shopping down the different aisle thing was. But the difference with this aisle is that you also have to check the box of, are you a dude?
Correct.
And that's what this staff is doing a better job of, which is why they're having some positions that maybe they're not filling up on the way that people think they should, because they're not going to go reach for guys.
Right.
They say, we'll just go to the portal and then
go
back to next year. We're not going to bring in a kid that's a try-hard 4-year depth guy. You'll get some of those guys, but for the most part, they're trying to bring in impact players.
Right.
And if they fall short, then they're not going to reach for a kid who's not at most positions. They're going to go to the portal for some of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes perfect sense to me. And to be honest with you, at this particular position that we're talking about, corner, as long as he checks the Mickens approves box, I'm on board. So I'm good to go. And if he says we're good to go, then I say we're good to go. So that's going to do it for our breakdown of Chaston Smith. Again, corner in the 26th class out of Tennessee, committed this afternoon, and is the 4th member of the 26th class, and more to come. Absolutely more to come. But again, make sure you stay locked into Irish Breakdown because this is signing week. Wednesday is signing day.
Weird how it's just so anticlimactic now, because it's you're not even really signing NLIs now. They got rid of that, so it's it's not even it's just kids can change. It's just
I know
it's really changed a lot. It just makes it a lot less.
They still try to make it a big deal.
We're not going to be doing a long recruiting show. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that, partly because we don't have a recruiting person that's fully, but it's not different.
Yeah, there's not going to be any breaking news. There's not, I mean, there maybe, but not like it used to be 10 years ago when we would go and hang out at Notre Dame all day long and wait for those faxes to come in, and they would announce them as they came in. Remember how we used to do that? And we would talk to all the different position coaches, and it was an all-day affair. They fed us lunch. It was a whole thing.
Now we get nothing. We don't meet with them. We get everything online, and yeah, it's just, yeah.
Is Marcus Freeman even doing a press conference on Wednesday?
I don't know.
I haven't heard of one.
I don't think they did one last year.
Yeah, so I like you said, this has changed drastically from what it used to be even a few years ago. So, but hey, signing day is still on Wednesday. You'll still have coverage over here at irishbreakdown.com. So make sure you check everything out. We'll have it for you on the boards, on the website. But you won't know unless you're there. So make sure you join the boards.irishbreakdown.com. And you're right, Michael, I do just miss the food. I took days off of work so that I would go and work this job so that I could get the food. I'm not gonna lie. It is what it is. So, but anyway, thanks for hanging out with us on a Sunday night, everybody.
Who was that with?
What's that?
Who was that with when you were doing that? Who were you working for at the time? Was that the radio station?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, probably. Yep. I would moonlight with some others, but it was primarily the radio station. But hey, everybody, thanks for hanging out with us. Appreciate you very much. Next Sunday, there will not be an Upon Further Review, but there will be a rankings reaction show. And I looked it up, and I believe the rankings show starts at noon. So we will come on the air right around then. So
when? What day?
On Sunday. Next Sunday.
Okay. Yeah. Wait a minute. What? Okay. Next Sunday. Got it.
Yeah. Next Sunday.
We're going to be busy next weekend, dude, because we're going to do a pregame. We're going to do a game day show.
Yep.
I'm going to talk to Vince about maybe doing a post-game show on Saturday. We'll see. We'll see. We're going to do the Sunday ranking show, and then no Upon Further Review, but we'll be busy this week. No doubt about that.
Yeah. We're definitely going to be busy. You're just lucky that my kid's not going on his official visit next week. He's going the following week when there's no football. So
smart kid. He's going to be gone for Army Navy. Your son is a communist. I don't know.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
Is he going to
the school that I want him to go to for his official visit?
Yeah, the first one.
Then he's not a communist. He's awesome.
That's the first one.
He's awesome.
Yeah, another college coach coming tomorrow to school and other officials to set up. But yes, that one.
Should I sabotage that guy coming tomorrow?
Probably. I don't think you'll have to worry about it, to be honest with you. But we'll see how it goes.
You know where I want him to go.
I do, and I'm right there with you. So, like I said, as long as it is the Brian Driscoll endowed position, I'm good to go.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I love your kid, but not that much.
All right, everybody. Hey, we're going to continue this off the air. I hope everybody has a great rest of your Sunday night. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. We will have IB Nation Sports Talk at 5. I believe you guys are off in the afternoon because you're posting stuff on the board usually, right?
On Monday?
Yeah.
I may do a mailbag tomorrow. Haven't quite determined that yet.
Okay.
That's why you have to have the notifications on.
Yeah.
That's why it needs to be there.
That's exactly right. So, hey, thanks everybody for joining us. We will talk to you next time on the Irish Breakdown podcast. For Bryan and I'm Vince. Have a great night. Talk to you later.